Hey, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of the Catholic Talk Show. Today, we're going to be talking about 15 things that need to stop happening at Mass.
Yeah, these are those things that you see happen at Mass and make you cringe, that you say, these have no place in the Mass, and they need to stop.
Well, the thing that really gets my goat, and the first one on my list is...
So welcome back to the studio. Ryan, Father Rich, good to be with you. We're going to be goating about things.
Goating.
Right?
Goating.
Apparently that's a thing.
Yeah.
Not goading. Goating.
Goat. Not with a T.
Goading.
Yes. D. Goad.
Yeah, today we're talking about all those things that happen at Mass that, look, to anybody who sees them, they know that this does not belong here, and they've found their way into the liturgy. Practices that don't belong there, were never meant to be there, but have started happening, and they need to stop.
I am expecting Ryan Scheel at his greatest form, tangentially complaining this entire episode. That's what I want.
Well, I went to one of your liturgies, and I was just taking notes.
And you had a list of at least 25 things, but he had to bring it down to 15.
We only got 2 hours.
Yeah.
Bad beard.
Bad beard.
Tacky vestments. No, you actually have very nice vestments.
Thank you.
You do.
Yeah.
So...
But you got a bad beard, I guess.
Yeah. Beards, it's all right.
I trimmed it.
Yeah. So some of these things, I would say almost all of these things are very indicative of the post-Vatican II church, but not all of them are necessarily a Vatican II thing. A lot of these things are really about the attitudes that people have taken towards attending Mass as well. So some are actually praxis, other are really the attitudes and the behaviors of the people at Mass. Some of them are problems that have crept into the church time and time again over generations, and some of them are very modern problems that we are only now starting to experience. So now, before we talk about these 15 things that need to be removed from the Mass, why don't you tell everyone how they can get in touch with us and find out more?
Well, the number one thing to do for that is to go to CatholicTalkShow.com. You'll see all the ways that you could listen in, from Stitcher to Google Play to the podcast forums on Apple, and certainly on YouTube. We are shooting here in the studio at UCatholic Studios, and our materials get uploaded to YouTube. If you check out the Catholic Talk Show, be sure to hit subscribe and click the little bell next to the subscribe button so that you'll be notified every time we produce a video. And certainly our patrons through patreon.com/Catholic Talk Show. These are our patrons that support the show and make sure that this material gets out through the interwebs to reach the furthest communities that we possibly can. I mean, Sheil, we have a pretty far reach now with the show.
We do. I mean, we've been on 6 continents, over 100 countries. I've lost track of it. We are aired in multiple countries at this point, from the Middle East to Central America, all over the world. So, this little thing that we're doing is doing better than we thought it would.
It's been a lot of fun, and I always look forward to producing this material with you and sharing some thoughts on the thing that we love the most, which is our Catholic faith and our love for the Lord, and certainly our love for Our Lady. And looking at what the 15 things are that you're going to share with us in this show, I mean, really, they probably started with some, maybe some pastoral ideas, or maybe some thoughts like maybe this will be good. Yeah, so they're experimenting, and when we share these things, it's not to accuse the people who invented or came up with the idea. We're just questioning the idea as it relates to its purpose and its end.
They need to stop.
See, I knew you were going to go there.
Yeah.
Here we go. This is going to be very, very entertaining.
And in the Mass, like 70% of Catholics, the study says that they don't believe in the Eucharist. So, I mean, we've got a lot of Catholics that just, unfortunately, through, I guess, bad catechesis, just don't understand what they're doing there. And I think a lot of that comes from that too,
Absolutely. And I definitely think that these things would help with giving the proper reverence and solemnity due to what is actually happening at the Mass. The Mass is the most holy thing in the entire world, and the celebration of the Eucharist deserves our utmost respect. And a lot of these things really kind of fly in the face of that. And some of them, I don't think they're intentional. I don't think that the people are.
No.
But they are things that, you give an inch, it turns into a mile. And these kind of practices,
And they're bad.
they're typically bad.
They're terrible.
They're terrible.
Terrible, Kenny.
All right. So I think this is one that we'll all agree on. So this should never happen at Mass. Clapping. Clapping.
Well, I've heard a really good homily before, and I think some people clapped after the homily because they're just like, "Thank God you're saying this."
Yeah, applause. From the Latin root laudare, to give praise.
Yeah,
right?
but we're not giving praise to human activities.
True,
we're giving praise to God, and
that's the hope. If you're delivering truth, and truth is being transmitted to people, and that is their response, I would say that that's okay. But if it's just more of theatrics and applause for the person itself, like I've had people applaud at homilies before that I've given, and I never take it to myself, and I go right into the creed whenever that happens. My hope is that in the delivery of a message during the homily, that it would lead people to silent contemplation. I think that is the ideal place to and it's like a beautiful musical piece like a polyphony or a post-communion reflection hymn, a beautiful piece of music to accompany people's prayer and contemplative thought process should ultimately lead people to silent awe and wonder. That would be the ideal way, not to immediately erupt in applause, because you really want people to get down to that deeper level of the contemplation of beauty and the transmission of God's love. So I agree, but at the same time, I don't know if it would be, the top one for me. Definitely not a preference, but.
So Pope Benedict, when he was Joseph Ratzinger, in The Spirit of the Liturgy.
Beautiful book.
Yeah, he wrote.
Beautiful man.
Yeah, love Pope
This is
Benedict.
the guy, man.
He's the guy. He said, wherever applause breaks out in the liturgy because of some human achievement, it is a sure sign that the essence of liturgy has totally disappeared and been replaced by a kind of religious entertainment. Such attraction fades quickly. It cannot compete in the market of leisure pursuits, incorporating, as it increasingly does, various forms of religious titillation. So basically, he's saying, look, if applause breaks out during the Mass because some kind of human achievement, you are taking the focus off the sacrifice of the Mass, and you're turning it into a show, and there is no way that the church is going to keep up with other shows. So it's a complete, it doesn't have a place in the liturgy. I can see, as an exception, a spontaneous applause for a amazing homily. Look, would I have applauded when Urban II called for the crusade at Claremont during Mass? Probably. Am I going to applaud because someone played a violin solo? No, it shouldn't happen. Go perform a concert. Don't do it in the Mass. I mean, it's beautiful music, but it's for the praise of God, for the praise of our Lord. And when you are directing the praise towards that performer, the orientation of praise and the laudatory nature of Mass completely changes, and it has no place.
I think what Pope Benedict is getting to is so good to reflect on. And again, I do want to underline a sense of response to a message, culturally speaking, in relationship to preaching in an African-American Catholic parish or church. And I'm telling you, I love preaching in that environment because you get an immediate response from the people that are listening, and they're involved and they're practicing. And it's definitely more of my cultural response as well, because when I'm listening, people bust my chops all the time because I'm like, yes, yes.
Yeah, I see you do that.
I do it all the time, and it's just an extroverted thing that I do. But at the same time, it's a response to something that I'm receiving.
Things that shouldn't happen.
You shouldn't be like, like the inexpressible groanings that happen within the heart. The natural response.
That's
we're not
different.
Yeah, we're not working toward. Okay, this is a human achievement. Applaud. The music or the homily or the liturgy or whatever.
I would say if it happens during the announcements before the dismissal, that's okay too. At least in my mind, because that's
like somebody celebrating 50 years.
Right. That's okay. But if it's, for music or for, God forbid, some kind of dance or something like that, just don't. Just save it. Tell them afterwards how great they did.
Number two.
Right.
Number two.
All right. Number two. And this one's
bad.
Bad. I don't like this.
Of course you don't.
It gets your goad.
Look.
Goad.
You'll go to a Mass and there'll be 100 people and there'll be 13 Eucharistic ministers. Extraordinary Eucharistic ministers. That needs
extraordinary ministers of Holy Communion.
EMHCs. Yeah. That needs to stop. That's way too many. And it completely flies in the whole reason to have that. I mean, you don't need that. You do not need this. It's not extraordinary anymore. It's every Sunday you have the same 10 people up there for 50 people on mass. That is exactly
What's the proper
look, if you're having
ratio,
a mass with
then
you're having a mass with 1,000 people and it's practically impossible to get through to everyone in a reasonable time. Okay, sure.
What's
what is a reasonable time?
What's the ratio?
So
What's
right
a reasonable
now
time?
I serve roughly around 550 at 550 to 600 people at our larger mass, right? So with say 1, 2, 3, 4, so say 8 communion stations up front, it takes approximately 11 minutes for the distribution of Holy Communion. And if it was just myself, and say it was just you're going to double that.
Yeah, it'd be double. Yeah,
you'll double that.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. It takes 10 extra minutes to receive the very body, blood, divinity, and soul of our Lord. I mean, it just shows our culture just how impatient it is that. How inconvenient it would be to receive the Lord. If they truly believe that was the Lord, they would wait a lifetime for it.
True.
And they can't wait 10 minutes, so they have to have Mary Beth do it. Come on.
But we need to take catechetical steps to get to the point where we can cultivate a sense of culture of silence, inviting in the anticipation, procession, and all of that type of stuff.
Well, I would argue receiving communion as the normative way from a layperson definitely diminishes the gravity most people feel towards the Eucharist. And I would say that it is a visual negative catechesis.
But again, I think, and we've talked about this in previous episodes too, I think moving back to a communion rail 100%. Where people receive on the tongue and they're there anticipating and waiting, the whole processional line, it just becomes clustered. You've got somebody genuflecting afterwards, somebody might trip. It's just it is a problem that needs discussion, and I do think going back to something like that and getting rid of this manner of distribution.
Work. And I think it hurts the belief in the true presence because it's just in most people's mind. I know that these are good people and they've had training, but in most people's mind they're like, oh, I don't know, they just handing it out. It loses some of the. I think in the perception, not in the actuality, because it's still truly the true presence, but it loses that. And I think that's definitely part of the visual decline of the sanctity of Mass that makes people lose belief in the true presence, which is the number one problem in the church today.
Yeah. I appreciate the order from the altar, from the priest hands, kneeling at the altar.
Yeah,
rail.
altar rails. All right. So
communion under both species or one?
Well, that's
Intinction.
Intinction is not a Roman or Latin practice. Under both species is good. Is it necessary? No, because even in the smallest molecule of the Eucharist, he is fully present. So you do not need both to somehow fully receive Christ. You don't. So is it necessary? Absolutely not. Theologically or practically, it's not necessary. Is it a good practice? Yes.
All right. Number three, and this talks about receiving under both forms. Receiving from the cup when you're sick. Oh yeah.
Shouldn't do that.
I don't receive from the cup just because I don't want to get sick, even if somebody does that.
Yeah. I mean, it is, if you know that you're sick and you're receiving from the cup, that is, don't do that. You can get people sick. There's old ladies drinking from that who don't have your immune system. You, like I said, you're still receiving fully the divinity and soul, body of Christ. You don't need to drink from the cup if you're sick. So,
could I add something?
Yes.
Lipstick.
Oh yeah. No lipstick on the chalice.
Yeah.
That happens a lot.
Lipstick
on the chalice. Yeah.
Look at the purificators after Mass.
Oh gosh.
Mostly lipstick.
A lot of lipstick.
Oh goodness. All right. Here's another thing that needs to stop happening at Mass. people getting up and leaving their seats and wandering around for the sign of peace. Stay in your seat. Don't go to the back of the church. Don't, talk to them afterwards.
Yeah. And I think we kind of culturally lost the understanding of what we're doing there because of the peace. When people share the peace sign, like with the two fingers, I mean, that's not the peace we're talking about here. And I always make it a point to say, peace of Christ be with you. Like I am praying for you that when you receive his precious body, that you have this overwhelming peace in your heart. I'm going to my brother and sharing that with them in that time. I think that's a beautiful thing.
There was a priest from an order in Spain, Father Colum, and he gave a little catechesis that was life-changing for my perspective on that, where he said, you're not turning around to offer peace to everybody in the congregation and you're running around and shaking hands and hugging and exchanging peace that way. It's very symbolic of the greater peace that you offer to your neighbor. Mm-hmm. So it's speaking more to an existential reality of extending peace to your neighbor, that you wish peace, the peace of Christ upon them.
But
just happens to be
almost for your own benefit as much as for the others, and that you're willing to give peace to others.
That's a good point too. But I was in a situation. A big shout out to St. Joseph Academy, oldest Catholic high school in the state of Florida. I worked there for a few years. Have a lot of love for the academy. But there was a number of catechetical opportunities with the young people and the high schoolers there, because at the sign of peace, you just heard the eruption of just a lot of talking, a lot of and they're kids,
kids, yeah.
And it became an opportunity for me to say, guys, everyone, take a breath. We're in the celebration of Mass. When you extend peace, and just to break it open, this is what you're doing. Yeah. And we want to stay manageable within the liturgy, so we're focused on what Christ is doing to us and offering us peace. Peace I leave you. Right. So first we must receive his peace in a prayerful, receptive manner in order to give peace. And Pope Benedict went in, I think, in the spirit on the liturgy, where he said we need to explore other areas that we could apply the exchange of peace, maybe not at that point, because I find at that point of the liturgy, it's like you're moving to this pivotal moment of the action of the distribution and the rite of communion, and now I'm distracted by my surroundings.
Yeah, everyone's running around like, hey, it's just, the sign of peace is optional. Mm-hmm. It is, right?
It is. Mm-hmm.
It would be my preference that it was left out more often.
Mm-hmm. Number 4.
All right. This one's kind of like it, which is excessive socializing before Mass. When everyone's just talking and laughing and this and that. I see
it after Mass before I see it before Mass.
Before Mass, I mean, even Pope Francis has spoken out about this multiple times, that before Mass, there really needs to be reflection and preparation for Mass, and it's not happening enough. If you're not preparing for Mass, that's on you, but distracting others from their preparation is selfish. So I think that's another thing, that having a little bit more austerity.
I think about these 2 old ladies at this daily Mass I used to go to, and they're just catching up, whispering and catching up on, what, so-and-so did, and this is going on. I'm just like, oh my God.
Well, I started playing Gregorian chant.
Oh, that's a good idea.
Yeah. And so before Mass, it started with just trying to create more of an area of silence and preparation for the sacrament of reconciliation and reverence. And then to also muffle out, because I'm behind, glass windows. I want to create more of like a static noise as well, for privacy of the penitent. But it's flowed over into other Masses as well. So the chant is playing in the background and kind of muffling down the noise of chatter. But I'm reminded of St. Faustina's words, that she would recommend at least an hour of silence before the celebration of Mass. And you think of fasting, right? Not eating, not listening to anything before, because you want to starve the senses so that you're hungering for the Word of God.
Yeah, you touched on, that's another thing on our list, is not fasting before Mass. That practice is almost completely lost.
1 hour. Is it 1 hour?
Despise 1 hour.
Although
Before you receive
despise.
communion
Yes.
or before the
you
mass starts?
before you receive communion. But if you're looking for the nuance and trying to get out of it, you've lost the spirit of it.
Well, I'm just wondering what the church is like
It's 1 hour before reception.
before reception. I do it before mass.
Which is
that's what I
better.
thought.
As children of this culture and in the world of modernity, we are constantly being stimulated and we are engaging realities constantly. We're constant in a loud, very, very loud culture, and we avoid silence. But silence creates that anticipation, that longing. And it's really, really important to realize that it's fasting from the senses, not only fasting from food. And I despise celebrating Mass on a full stomach. I cannot, I just don't feel good. I don't feel like I'm hungry. It's difficult at times when I have the 8:30, the 10:30, the 12:30, and I haven't had anything. So between the 10:30 and the 12:30.
2 masses a day, right?
Yeah, but I'm in a complicated situation because of pastoral need. I don't have an associate. It turns into 3 masses on Sunday, which is permissible.
Right.
But
On Sunday.
But the situation that I face is, maybe during the 10:30 and the 12:30, I'll have a yogurt or something like that where my stomach's not too full, but at least I get something.
Like your yogurt.
But
You do love your yogurts.
Yeah.
I do.
What's next?
All right. So the next thing, keeping your phone on when you go to mass. Turn the ringer off. Guys, come on.
And if you don't know how to do that,
Leave your phone in the car.
leave your phone in the car.
Yeah, I leave it in the car.
Yeah.
I just because I don't need it.
You don't need
I
it.
don't need my phone.
Turn your ringer off. I
Yeah.
mean, but you invariably, it'll be right during the, right during the consecration, someone's phone
That's
will go
the
off
worst.
like,
I
whose
love it
phone
when
is
it's like a-
ringing? Mine. Whose phone is ringing? Mine. It's just like, guys, it's not hard. It's a switch. Turn it off. And then someone's phone will go off and they'll not acknowledge it and they'll just let it keep ringing so no one knows it's them.
It's the best.
Like, we know it's just turn your phones off. Not hard.
There was an Asian broadcast of like a news station, and it was like news bloopers. I love watching that on YouTube. And the guy's phone goes off right during the show, and he takes it out of his pocket, and you just see him, and he like chucks his phone across the set, and you just hear it crash like. Oh, it was great.
Yeah, I mean, how often do you hear a phone go off during mass? Just turn your phones off. There's no.
It
need
happened
for
this
it.
past weekend for me.
Yeah. What song played?
Whose phone is mine? No. Whose phone is ringing?
Mine. All right. Another thing that needs to stop happening at mass is not donating.
Tithing.
You know what's weird though with this electronic thing, like I don't visibly put anything in, but they're taking out of my bank account. And I don't know. One of them used to send like this little red slip. You put it in,
And you could put in the basket.
and I was like kind of embarrassed. Like, well, what am I doing putting this red slip in there? So it's just kind of weird that it's good because I don't have to write checks and do all these other things, but I still like tangibly putting something in. I'm thinking about changing
I love
that.
online giving personally, but also as a pastor and as an administrator, I like having the consistency of a clear forecast of, where are we? It's very, very helpful. Yeah. It's so helpful.
Look,
but I understand like the basket is a tradition that has been passed on, no pun intended, but from generation to generation as an offering. But to even go back to other ways that you can give in relationship to what comes in the offertory, whether it's food or other types of things that you could bring before the altar for the blessing and the distribution.
You would accept food?
Absolutely.
Okay. Do
Absolutely.
people do that on it?
I haven't seen it in any churches, but historically, that's exactly what happened.
Look,
and I would love to move back to something like that.
Community.
It's for the benefit of the church, and all of us have the responsibility of supporting the churches, our church, and we have that responsibility. And just obstinately not donating, God sees what you're doing.
I think
There was a stat that I read
Look,
a number of years
you
ago.
cannot be more generous than God.
Oh, yeah.
You can't be. So,
And he's giving you everything.
right, and he's giving you everything. So giving something, just making an effort.
It would be good to get numbers again, but I think I forget how many years ago, it was like 3.6% tithing by a Catholic. Where, you know, evangelical churches, Baptist churches,
it's like almost
they're a
100.
strict 10%, you know, tithing community, scriptural tithing community.
I don't think tithing is necessary for Catholics. It's not in the law. It's not even what the church recommends of tithing. For some people, tithing is impractical because of the razor thin margins of their budgets. And it's just unrealistic for someone making $32,000 a year with 2 kids and a mortgage and a car to give up 10% of their income. They can't do it.
Yeah.
So tithing is not ever demanded by the church. Giving with a generous heart is more important than someone giving 10% with no love.
Mm-hmm.
You know, that's the widow's mite. So it's really about giving with true generosity and thanksgiving for the support of the church and for the deeds and the activities that the church does to protect and nurture all of its people. That's the thing that needs to happen.
Mm-hmm.
What's next?
But the widow's mite is giving way more than 10%.
Well, it was everything she had.
Yeah.
But it was, for some people, if they're making $30,000 a year, giving $10 that week is a lot of times an incredibly big deal. I mean, $10 is like, I'm not going to have gas for my car.
I don't know, man. I do believe in scriptural tithing. I do believe in 10%. I've had some stewardship models that I was exposed to at Christ the King. I mean, you know, Monsignor Danaher was such a wonderful priest. He led people to that type of reality, and they were able to pay for all the kids' education, build out the church property, evangelize the poor.
Tithing's great. It's just, it's not a requirement of Catholics.
But at the same time, considering what that can do for a community is tremendous.
Right.
It's really, really impactful, but it will make you look at, what am I doing? You know, what is my lifestyle?
Yeah.
And how can I shift my lifestyle to accommodate this?
Yeah.
Because this is an important
We
thing.
could probably do a whole show on this because there's a lot of topics there. There are a lot of topics to consider spiritually and financially, and
For sure.
you know,
For sure.
what's
What's the next one?
So next, leaving early. People need to stop leaving mass early. Again, it's just that disposition that if you can't wait 5 more minutes,
they all try to get to their cars quicker, to the parking lot.
Look, if you can't, if 5 minutes is the difference between you and your relationship with God, you radically need to reevaluate the way you live your life. If you need to get to IHOP 5 minutes faster and ditch your God, see how that works out for you. See who's going to save you, God or pancakes.
That's part of the Eucharistic, I think, understanding. I don't think people understand.
I had such a bad example. Vigil Mass, my first parish, just 60% of the people would
at my parish too. Yeah.
After communion. Oh,
it broke Saturday my heart. Vigil?
Saturday Vigil.
They do it at my parish. They don't do it at any of the other ones.
Honestly,
but Saturday Vigil is like,
most of the churches I've been at, the Saturday Vigil has the worst behavior.
I love the Saturday Vigil. It is very convenient. But it is very much a situation where when you give a person an inch, they take a mile.
Oh, yeah.
And the Saturday Vigil was definitely a concession of mercy towards people in the modern world that have difficulty getting the Sunday. But again, you can't make it on Sunday, so you go on Saturday and you're still leaving early. Like, come on, man.
I have to say, the parish that I'm currently at JP2, man, it's really, really good. But there's a family that came up to me because right after I bless everyone, go in peace, there's like a group in the back that immediately like skirts out. Yeah. So this one family came up and they're like, Father, we were always told that you have to wait for the processional cross to pass you before you can, you know. I said, that's a beautiful.
That's what I've always
said. You go out, you follow the priest.
It's devotional. Yeah. I don't mind if I commission you and I say, go and announce the gospel of the Lord, and you're hitting it. I'm cool with that.
Well, that's where the very name Mass comes from. It comes from the old dismissal, missa est, which means it is ended. Go.
Ite missa est.
So it's not Mass until you've gotten that dismissal. So don't leave early.
I did that on Saturday Vigil.
You left early?
No, right after the blessing.
Took off. Look, do you know who else left early from Mass?
Judas.
Don't be
There's
Judas.
a sign on a parish in Keller, Texas. There's on the doors where you're leaving. It says Judas left the Mass early on all the doors.
Oh, wow.
Isn't that insane? And nobody left the Mass early.
You should have that done in Latin.
At my first parish, it wouldn't have worked. I begged the people. There was one Mass where I cried. I mean, I literally
they didn't go for that.
I like maybe saved like 3 people over the 3 years that I was there.
Ouch.
They're just
Believe
like,
it or not.
yo, dude, you ain't even like.
I mean, I got to the point where I was just so deeply like, I delivered that, and
gosh, man.
there was a few people that wrote me and said, you know, I'm going to chain, blah blah blah. But yeah, for the most part, people obstinate.
All right, another thing that needs to stop happening at Mass: bad preaching. Now, this one's on the clergy.
How do you stop that?
By getting these priests some training in homiletics.
Yeah.
And getting some fire in them, because I mean, I hope I'm not telling anybody anything they don't know, but your homilies are not inspiring people and they're falling asleep. You're not nourishing the people with what you're saying.
Yeah.
And come on, guys, you once a week, you know,
I think there are people in our community that clearly have the gift of preaching. Not everybody that goes through the seminary and formal training. There can be techniques that you can teach to help people that may not have great public speaking skills.
Yeah.
There's techniques that you can help them with, but I'm going to present a liberal take on this that you're going to be like tearing vestments on. But I believe, you know, like who's the patron of preachers? Do you know who the patron of preachers is?
Golden Tongue. Christendom?
No.
Chrysostom? St. John Chrysostom?
And I stumped the
Vianney?
Nope.
Dominic, no.
St. Catherine of
Siena.
Alexandria.
Oh, Alexandria. Okay.
Persuasive speech, you know. So I was baptized in her church in Blauvelt. I got to know her obviously because it was my titular parish where I was baptized. But, you know, there are men and women who have the gift of preaching.
Not everyone's. I understand. I fully recognize that not everybody is going to be a gifted orator.
But the church has to be more accommodating, in my humble opinion, in relationship to men and women who have that gift, who are properly trained theologically and biblically to be able to
them.
Exactly. I think we need to move in that direction. And having that, then the message is being driven more clearly. And on top of that, with people who have the gift. And the church has to accommodate and make capacity for that. In the early church, it was that way. I mean, men and women spoke within the context of the liturgy. They shared testimony. And that builds the fabric of our mystical union.
So you're saying like some layperson can get up there and
if they're given that faculty by the bishop, why not? If they have gone through their training,
they don't have to be a deacon or anything.
Well,
like
if they have that faculty,
that's just not in the holy orders, though.
It's not at this point.
It's something that could occur.
Yeah, but with the
we
same
could look
amount of
at
time,
it historically and argue it, though.
Yeah, but with the amount of time that it would take to administer and train those people, just train your priests.
Yeah, but at the same time,
at
the same time, it takes a gift. And I'm telling you, there's people, like I'm thinking Lisa Brennickmeyer, Walking with Purpose. She is a phenomenal preacher. And, you know, there's no concessions. She's very, very well trained. You can send her through a formation program, evaluate her theology, evaluate all of this stuff, offer her feedback, and then let her speak.
Yeah, but preaching the gospel and giving the homily, no. Sorry, no.
I know that you wouldn't feel strongly about this. No. I do feel strongly about this because it's down to the very origins of our church.
Yeah, but that's putting a Band-Aid on the problem. The bigger problem is that priests are not preparing or are not good at preaching.
There's
they're
some
not getting
priests that you can't even tell what they're saying, Ryan. What are you saying? I mean, like, how do you even like
preparation makes up for a multitude of lack of talent. So if they were more prepared and gave it more effort to their preaching, you might have a bad voice, a bad accent, and you might not have anything good to say. But if you prepare well enough, you can at least do an adequate job.
There's a website called ePriest where they help priests prepare for their homily.
There's 2,000 years of homilies on any topic for any gospel reading. Go read them and
read them out loud.
Read it out loud. Go read it. Say, I'm going to read to you today from a homily by St. John Chrysostom.
Yeah.
That is a much better answer than having a laywoman coming in and giving a homily.
If you read,
I will fight you.
If you will read a homily of St. John Chrysostom, if I read a homily of St. John Chrysostom at a mass, people would be like, it would be. It would be
fall asleep when he was reading them?
No, see, the thing is if guys, even if you're not good at public speaking and delivery, start with something that's relatable that you can remember without reading. Make a point, tie it to the scripture, and then apply it to people's lives and be done in 5 minutes.
Right.
You know, if you don't have the delivery
that's preparation.
It is preparation.
And
but guys prepare, and they're preparing these theological discourse and this exegetical way of delivering messages.
I guess you gotta know yourself.
You have to know yourself, but at the same time, you know, people may approach that and say, like, this is really good material. It may be good to read, but not to deliver.
Well, okay, that might have been a hyperbolic statement that they should just read from the church fathers.
Are you guys in accord here now?
No.
I hope that we're both in agreement on this, that this needs to stop happening at Mass, and that is receiving communion in mortal sin.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That, I mean,
again, like, it's just people not knowing, man. It's, I don't think people that receive immortal sin understand what they're receiving. It's just impossible. Your heart would cringe in an utmost way, knowing that you're in mortal sin going to receive communion. I mean, if you really knew what that was.
Yeah, I think this is more tied to the fact that there's just, I mean, the lines for confession are 20 times longer than they are. I'm sorry, for communion are 20 times longer than they are for confession. And that is a true imbalance. And this isn't to be wagging the finger and saying, well, you're sinners. It is, they're bringing their own judgment upon themselves, you know, receiving unworthily.
But again, this has got to be put in.
This is not something that
it's not the lay people's fault.
No,
it's catechesis.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And it's availability. You go, I've been to a number of churches. Confessions are 15 minutes long, 4:45 to 5 o'clock.
It's crazy.
How are you going to develop a culture and reverence for the sacrament of reconciliation when it's just 15 minutes a week? How many penitents are you going to receive in the sacrament?
Yeah, I go to a daily mass at a place, and he's in there every day for 30 minutes before mass. He's probably praying his breviary or whatever, you know, and rosary or whatever. He's in there all the time, and people come from far and wide to go to confession because they know he's going to be there.
That's beautiful.
All right. Another thing that needs to stop happening at Mass is dressing inappropriately. It's just, look, if you will dress up to go to Applebee's to have a freaking martini,
I wouldn't do that.
Well, there's people who would, but they won't dress up for Mass.
Yeah.
Right? Come on. Just give some
what's
effort.
dressing up, right? I wear like a collared shirt.
It is about interior reflection, that your clothes or the way you're presenting yourself are a reflection of your desire to honor. Look, if you don't have nice clothes,
gotcha.
If you
need to start wearing nicer
if you have
clothes.
potato sacks and that is the nicest thing you own, and you wear it and you're wearing it as true reverence to Christ, then it's fine.
Dude, I have this crazy story that happened at Santa Maria del Mar in Flagler years ago when I was a youth director. This guy walks in and you know, like all these lay women ran to the back into the sacristy where I was preparing things for Father John to celebrate the Mass. And they said, "Richard, there's a man in the church without his shirt on." I'm like, well, I go in the church, and this guy, you know, big 6'5" guy, like huge guy. And he's got tattoos all over himself, and he's wearing baggies and flip-flops. He's not even wearing flip-flops. He's barefoot.
Jeez.
No shirt on. Right off the beach. And I said, "Hey, man, what's up?" I said, "I'm Rich Pagano." He's like,
What's up, Rich? What do you want?
Yeah. So I'm like, "Hey, man, can I talk to you real quick?" He's like, "What? What's wrong? What's wrong?" I said, "Hey, bro," I said, "Nothing's wrong, man. Nothing." I said, just come with me real quick. I just want to talk to you." So he came with me to the sacristy.
Then he hit him in the back with a crowbar.
And I'm like, "Hey, man, you know, you're gonna have to put like a shirt on or something." And he's like, "What? You don't accept me? God accepts me for who I am, where I am, and how I am. God," you know, he starts going. I said, "Hey, man, I'm cool with that. You just can't have no shirt on, and all these women, look at they're distracted. They're looking at you." I said, "You got to help me out. Put a shirt on." I said, "Here's a shirt right here. You could wear this. It's my shirt. Wear the shirt."
Did it fit him?
And he's like, he starts going into it again, like, whoa. Yeah, and I could just tell.
Self-righteous.
So I drew close to him. I looked him in the eyes. I said, "Hey, man, there's no judgment here."
Yeah.
I said, how much do you have to drink today?" And he just went silent. I said, "Listen, man, I like you." I said, why don't you come back tomorrow and come and see me? Huh? We'll talk. We'll get to know each other. And he's like, and he walked away. He didn't go to the next day. He came. Poor guy was addicted to heroin.
Oh man.
You know, not only alcohol, had a lot of problems. And I was able to minister to this guy. And he started helping me at the church every week.
Beautiful.
Gave him some work. And it was a beautiful. The guy unfortunately passed away from the addiction, but God rest his soul. But yeah, ministered to his mom and crazy.
Yeah, I mean, number one, that's a great story. Thank you for sharing that. You know, you are a good priest, no matter how much I pick on you.
Call me a lib.
Yeah, you're not a lib, but that's an easy way to pick on you. Just because you call me a trad.
I do.
So I call you a lib.
And I just watch.
It's true.
You're just sitting over there like we got Bernie's. You know, it's not that kind of instance. It's really, again, and it's not even what you wear. I don't care what you wear necessarily. It's about the attitude that you present yourself with. If you knew that you were going to see the historical Jesus in his earthly ministry, you would not go there wearing, you know, what you typically wear to mass. And there is no difference.
Shout out to my ushers, man. They look sharp every week. The ladies are dressed beautiful. Guys are wearing ties and suit coats, even in the middle of the summer, which I was, it would be hard for me to wear a suit with, you know.
Yeah,
summer.
Try it. Like Back to the Future 2, wear two ties.
So what's the next one?
All right. So the next one, and this one's a particular one that irritates me because it's such an easy change that
just so irritable.
I am.
Ryan
not
Shield.
having the Sanctus bells during the consecration. It's such an easy thing to bring back. That is a nod to tradition that is incredibly powerful and beautiful element of the Mass that should just be happening. Look, when there's that,
where the magic happens.
Not magic.
Draws your attention.
It does, but I mean, it's almost Pavlovian that you hear those bells. I mean, when I go to a Mass that doesn't have the bells, even during the elevation, I hear the bells.
I feel the same way about the big bells and you know, like a bell tower and even like the sound of the organ. You know, I would. It's just so expensive. Organs are so expensive, dude. But
get an electric one. Plug a Casio.
They're
into
expensive.
A Casio into a sound system will cost you $300. Get one.
Casio.
A Casio?
Yeah.
With my Casio watch?
With your Casio watch. Talk to me. If you need the money, I'll show you how to do it.
15 things would be 16 things we hate to see at Mass now. Casio.
No, but I mean, there's ways around that now. You don't need an entire
You can just play
German
songs too.
silver bell, you know.
Silver bell.
Oh, Lord.
Silver bell.
All right. And here's another thing. Genuflecting towards the altar and not the tabernacle when the tabernacle is in a different area of the church makes no sense. Makes no sense. Look, you genuflect when you enter the church towards the tabernacle, even if that's off at a side altar or wherever it's at.
Yeah.
And then you bow towards the altar. Or if the tabernacle is behind the altar, then you genuflect. But again, it goes back to the whole concept of people not understanding the true presence and not truly believing that Christ is present.
I don't like it when they move the thing over the side and stuff. There's a church in
the diocese, in my diocese.
And it's like, where is he?
Yeah.
It's like, where's Waldo?
That's the worst feeling.
You're just like,
where I have the Blessed Sacrament now is kind of what I've inherited, and it's in like what we're calling the chapel. And I'm trying to do my best because we're on this interim, facility right now that's multi-purpose, and it's just challenging. I just pray that we build this church soon.
But there's churches sometimes where the chapel of repose is in a side chapel, and it is a very beautiful
St. Peter's. I mean, like, I'm not saying, I get it.
That could be a beautiful area.
The Basilica Shrine of Our Lady in DC, it's in a different area, but it's a big chapel where you go and you sit.
For that purpose of reverence.
Yeah,
and that's what we're purposing our chapel for Eucharistic adoration, devotion.
Which is still non-preferential than having it being at the altar.
Like, some people just hide it. Like,
right.
I dream of a church that we can build that you can have these beautiful, curtains that close, off the area of adoration for, just daily adoration or daily mass. And then the full focus is on the altar, which is the most important thing liturgically that we're focused on. That's why we bow to the altar, and then we genuflect when the presence of Jesus comes after the epiclesis, where the hands of the priest come over the bread and the wine, and transubstantiation takes place. And it is Jesus's body, blood, soul, and divinity present upon the altar. The altar calls to mind the resurrected body of Christ. That's the whole focus, and our liturgy has to focus in on that. But the space, constructing the space, is so important to be able to identify that. And I've always imaged that, like, right before Mass, the curtains close and the lights change and focus on the altar to help people in the process of seeing the place of repose as you arrive and spend time in
that's
silent
almost like
prayer.
the iconostasis in an Eastern church, where the doors open the doors, and they have, in and out, and then when it's open, you can see the sanctuary. So, I mean, I think that historically there's some precedence there. And I do think that there is some novelization of church designs that can happen that take into account new ideas, but then also deeply incorporate tradition. They swung and missed from like 1960 to they're terrible.
Big time.
I just saw a baptism taking place, and it was just a very, very tiny bowl, and there was like a pitcher. No, that baptism. Oh, God bless. But it was a pitcher of water, and it's just it's something that you would use for lemonade, and
it's like Mr. Kool-Aid. Like, oh yeah,
it's heartbreaking. It's the most beautiful.
Drink the water at the party
where
afterwards.
you look at the baptismal fonts of St. John Lateran. I don't use the shell, but
I think it's beautiful.
But the St. John Lateran. The beautiful baptistry in Milan where St. Augustine was baptized. Ooh. These massive pools of water. To have something beautiful and big that when you're celebrating the Easter Vigil, when you're celebrating baptisms, you could have full immersion, or you can have a larger place to celebrate these the most important fundamental sacrament of our salvation, baptism.
Absolutely.
But it's a little tangent.
All right. So the last one, it's going to be controversial. Holding hands during the Our Father.
I was wondering if you were going to talk about that.
Look, there is nothing in the church that says you shouldn't do that.
There are people out there that love holding hands during the Our
Father. If I'm in Mass and someone's like,
you're gonna love this story, buddy.
Dude, I'm gonna snap your wrist.
Most recently, the Holy Father has extended the celebration in the Roman calendar during December. I think it's December 10th or 11th for the Holy House in Loretto.
Yes.
So he universalized that celebration,
which was awesome,
which is fantastic. And I've been there. When I went, Father Tetlow was leading a pilgrimage, and he had to go back. Unfortunately, a priest passed away, so he had to leave. And there was a priest in Loretto that could celebrate the English Mass. Now, I'm coming from Santa Maria del Mar. My liturgical experience is isolated to two churches, St. Elizabeth and Santa Maria. And we always hold hands at the Our Father. So here's this very traditional Italian priest that's celebrating the liturgy, and I'm serving the Mass. And he goes into the Our Father, and he's got his hands in the orans position. And I move up close to I'm supposed to hold this guy's hand. And I go and I reach for his hand. So reach for my hand. Reach for my hand right now.
Hard pass.
Come on. No, seriously, reach for my hand. So as he reaches for my hand, the Italian priest goes like this. He's like, he smacked my hand during the liturgy. Good. To which I took 3 steps back and went back into the prayer stance. But it's like I didn't know better. That's exactly my whole upbringing was we hold hands during the Our Father.
Or that position, the orans position during Our Father. That's also,
it's reserved for the priest.
You're not supposed to do that.
It's reserved for the priest, the orans position. But yeah, that story, man, I'll never forget that. Then I asked him for a blessing afterwards. He was in the confessional. I knelt down and he gave me a blessing, cocked back, and he slapped me on top of my head. Bam, right on the crown of my head. I was filled with chills when he did it. It was awesome. He beat me up that
He's like
day.
A Benny Hinn. Wow.
Benny Hinn.
Whapping you with the jacket.
With the jacket.
There's some good stuff out there.
All right, so there you go. That's 15 things that need to stop happening during Mass. I feel better now. Do you feel better? Getting to
you weren't
complain a little bit?
You weren't so curt either. That's pretty good.
I really feel like
in charity.
I really
over
do
the
feel
years.
like I've grown over time.
Your delivery is softer.
Yeah.
You're getting soft on us.
I know I'm getting old.
Congratulations.
Hanging around you with your liberation theology and
That's not true.
your charismatic dance parties,
Your hand holding.
crystal chalices.
Oh gosh.
If there are crystal chalices out there, that also needs to.
Yeah, there you go.
needs
There's
to
a
stop.
bonus. Crystal chalices.
Crystal
Stop.
chalices.
All right,
gosh.
no. He's not like that.
What
I just
about
like to
wooden
use-
chalices?
No.
Precious metals.
Precious metals. Yeah.
That's in
They
general
make
instructions.
some of the olive wood chalices, and then they have a gold
They put
inlay.
ornamentations on them.
Yeah. Something like that is appropriate.
Quit overthinking it. Just get a chalice.
just a-
dude. Come
And
on.
there's so many chalices out there that can be remade and regilded, and they're beautiful. They're not that expensive. It's something beautiful for the Lord, man. When it comes to vestments and chalices and liturgical space, do not spare. And that was John Vianney's.
No, St. Francis. St. Francis lived in poverty and rags,
true.
and he never spared an ounce of gold for the altar. So, personal poverty, personal austerity, but for the altar, nothing was too good for Christ.
Amen.
So we need that attitude. So,
Good episode, guys.
Great episode.
Yeah.
all right. So before we bounce, why don't you tell everyone how they can find us?
Well, my brothers and sisters, we want to make sure that you're commenting on all of our social media feeds, Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. And certainly, if there's more things that you think should be on this list, feel free to put those on our feed.
They're going to let us know.
Oh, yeah. You let us know every week anyway.
They do.
And be sure to visit us at CatholicTalkShow.com. There you'll be able to figure out every way that you could listen in or view. And certainly Patreon.com/Catholic Talk Show gives you the ability to support us financially so that we may continue to produce the show and reach new audiences by the way of your generosity. So we thank you so much. And you know what I love? No Inquisition this week, buddy.
No Inquisition.
So we'll see you next week.